So people who don't know, how I met you or came across you is you were a story on the Gutfeld show. And at the time, it was the cancel so-called culture was at its peak, where guys were just getting picked off for saying anything that didn't go along the lines with the left media or the LGBTQ community. They keep adding letters, so I get confused at times, but I'm not apologizing for that. But you were a DC comic artist, a very successful one.
Yes.
Still a very successful artist. And you were given the task of redoing Superman, basically.
Yeah.
With the idea of making Superman's son, he needed to be gay.
Underage.
Yeah, underage.
Let's
son.
get that right.
Yeah, underage. I forgot there was also a little bit of a creepy tweak there that he was underage, and they wanted to have what was graphic relationships and a thing. And you did the craziest thing, and I'll let you kind of fill us in from there. You said no. And this is your dream job, correct? So that's the preference, but give us a little background of how you got to DC, because it was a lot of hard work to get there. It's the pinnacle. You're either at Marvel or DC, and I think when it comes to comic books, you got to kind of give DC a little bit of an edge. You can give Marvel the edge on movies, but with comic books, I think you can give DC a little bit of an edge there.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think DC does have a little bit more of that regal thing, and Marvel's more of that street level, like gritty, dirty stuff. I've been drawing since I don't know when, ever since I was a little boy. The first drawings I remember in the back of my grandparents' Mexican restaurant. I was like 3 years old drawing Star Wars, like in 1981 or whatever. Anyway, long story short, I fall in love with comics at 13. I see Jim Lee's X-Men. I want to be Jim Lee. I want to be his friend. Story even shorter, he hires me. He personally hires me at age 29, end of 2007. I start working in Jim Lee's studio. My favorite artist from childhood hires me. Excuse me. I start working in his studio January of 2008, working for DC Comics, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Justice League, all these wonderful things. And we all know wokeness has started to get a little weirder. It's been around for decades, but it got weird in Obama's second term. I think everyone kind of talked about 2013, 2014. And I worked my way up. I'm on like lower level books. So finally, it was 2021. They're like, you're going to be on Superman. You and John Timms and Tom Taylor, writer, illustrator. I'll be doing the color art on that. And I'm so excited. Here I am. They're called superheroes, and this is Superman. This doesn't get bigger.
Number
literally.
one, yeah.
And I get the first script, and the name of it is Truth, Justice, and a Better World. And I'm like, oh, no. And I know the writer, he's woke. I'm not trying to pick on him, but he's a woke guy. He's a big woke guy. And I was like, oh, no, is this going to be what I think it is? And I start reading it, and they start talking about, it's his son of Kal-El. So it's going to be Superman's teenage high school son, and he's got a boyfriend and this and that. And I talked to my dad. I'm Christian. My dad is Muslim, and it's just like, I don't want to do this. They're disrespecting the American way, which to me is just insane. Superman's power is not that he's strong and he can fly and has laser vision. His power is his morality, his character, his kindness. Even though he's so big and powerful, he has restraint because he could just rule the world, Superman. No one can defeat him. He could be the worst tyrant ever. But the lesson of him is with all that power and all that strength, he has a wonderful heart. And those are his American values because his farmer, Midwest American Christian farmers from Kansas, they taught him his values. So that helps him. You're a huge dude. I'm a very big guy. That's why I call my combo company that. I'm 6'4". What are you, like 6'8", right?
Yep.
We know what it's like. I'm sure you accidentally hurt people when you were a kid, and I did it too. And
accidents probably being polite, but yes, I get the jest, yes.
I was in first grade, I was being chased by a girl that wanted to kiss me, and I was looking back running, and I ran into another girl, knocked her down, broke her arm. And I remember the principal took me aside and explained to me, you're much bigger than everyone else. You have to be careful. And that's such a great story in Superman of all his power, but he has to have a good heart and good morality. So anyway, the fact they want to destroy that, and that's what like the left wing, the communist people, they always want to take the heritage, the statues, the songs, the tradition, and they want to destroy them out of arrogance and malice and stuff. And I just didn't want to be a part of it. And now, I talked to my dad. He said, well,
real quick, because I want to hear more about you and your dad because you're Christian, he's Muslim. I can't wait to hear how that works out at the dinner.
That can get interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's a comic book within itself. But that also shows that your family celebrates diversity and letting you find your own path, which I dig, and that's how I raise my kids. But It wasn't. You didn't have an issue with anyone being gay or straight. That was not the issue. That was not the issue at all. And that's what they tried to make the issue about. And it was one of those, and I always said, well, why can't you just make a new character? Or the beautiful thing about most of our superhero characters is we didn't know whether they were gay or straight, or unless there was a relationship in the comic book. And we didn't care. Nobody cared. You didn't read comic books to get up on who the fictitious character was sleeping with. Like they missed the point on that. But your issue was the fact that it was promoting underage kids doing things. Anything. Doesn't matter, because that's my rule in my house. I have 6 kids, and if 4 of them decided they were gay tomorrow, their dating rules are the same as my straight kids, which is there's no dating until you're 24, because you got enough. But that's just me. Hey, I don't care what you are, but you're not dating because you got your own business to take care of. So, how tough was that? Because no one bothers to actually be precise when they attack you. How did it go down with you ultimately saying no? How tough was that for you?
It was very tough because, as I said, I've loved drawing since I don't remember. Since I was a little boy, it's my favorite thing to do, and I do talk a lot and I tell a lot of stories. I'm also an award-winning writer. I've been writing a lot. I won many awards when I first started writing back in college. So I love telling stories. I love drawing, and it was a dream, and it was so much hard work to get to DC Comics. There are only a few hundred of us that do this for a living successfully. It's so hard. You got to pro wrestling. How few people do that and get to the top? But how many people fight so hard and don't make it?
Right.
So to walk away from that was it was so terrible. I was so upset about it, but I had to follow my conscience. And again, it wasn't about the character being gay. It was about the character being underage and any sexuality. And even if they were adults, I don't do material like that. They never asked me to before, and I don't want to. I don't think that's right. That's not my thing. If other people want to do it, fine. But I'm not into that. But I laugh at the people that tried to call me a homophobe or whatever. The very first book that DC Comics had me do as a solo color artist, where I wasn't just helping, 2009, I did The Midnighter from The Authority, and they're going to put him in a movie soon with James Gunn's new DC Comics movies. The Midnighter's very gay, but that's not what the book's about. You just know that he's gay. He has a boyfriend named Apollo, and The Midnighter's like a Batman/Punisher. He's like if Batman was ultra-violent. I loved working on that book. That was Keith Giffen was writing, Lee Garbett was illustrating, I was coloring. I didn't have a problem with that. I worked on that for many issues until that book was canceled. So for them to say, oh, you quit because Superman's someone's gay, it's like, no, I quit because he's underage, and we don't need to focus on the sexuality of underage people, and they want to get rid of the American way as the motto. No, my grandfather fought in World War II, and my father, he escaped Gaddafi's regime to come here after they murdered his dad and my dad's friends for speaking up against Gaddafi and his socialist dictatorship. So I'm not going to be part of disrespecting America. I love this country. Are you kidding me? So it was really hard to walk away, Tyrus, but the power of stories, it's funny, I'll let you go because I'll talk forever if you let me. Indiana Jones, the third movie with Sean Connery, Last Crusade, he's stepping into that bottomless chasm, and there's the invisible rock bridge, right? It's a leap of faith by, a man who trusts God. I remember picturing that over and over and over when I was writing my resignation letter to DC, picturing Indiana Jones close his eyes and step out, because I prayed, I said, God, don't let me fall. This is my only job. I've been a professional artist for 20-something years.
And you have a family.
I got a wife and kids in San Diego. It's a little expensive to live here. I didn't have any work lined up, but my conscience told me, you got to resign. So I did, and God didn't let me fall. I've been lifted higher than ever. I've had so much great sales on books, independent comic books that are awesome. They're not weird or preachy or anything like that. They're just classic adventure like they did back in the 80s.
Well, you and Dean Cain did a pretty successful. Well, as a matter of fact, before I get into the Dean Cain stuff, you released something right around the same time as the new Superman came out. And what was the matchup like? I know what it was. Well, I know what the score was, but it probably feel good coming from you to say it.
Right. Well, I released a book called Truth, Justice, American Way, partnered up with an amazing illustrator named David Williams. And it was this great concept. And they were analogs for Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And it celebrated the classic 70s, 80s style of superheroes. A beautiful book, very successful. I made more on that than I made at DC and all that. And I made good money at DC Comics. It was very good money when I worked there at Warner Brothers. And I did way better independently doing that book.
Well,
so
you guys
that was
blew
a huge success.
New Superman's comic out of the water.
that book, the anti-American underage weirdo stuff, Superman, it did get canceled in less than a year, I believe.
Yeah, it was done.
So maybe it went a little longer than a year, but it did get canceled with a premier writer, a premier illustrator, and a premier character like Superman, and the people don't want it. And like you said earlier, Tyrus, there's nothing wrong with creating all kinds of diverse characters, but don't take the established ones and change them, because then you destroy the built-in fan base. They liked it the way it was.
Well, you're seeing it with Marvel, which had the Marvel movies on. They were on swole. They were just hitting everything, and then they just went woke. I think Thor is probably the craziest one, because they even changed the storyline that was the main story of a character, and I'm talking about the Rock guy. His whole thing, and now, first of all, if you know the comic book, the way they presented him on the movie was already a slap in the face. This was this dude from an ancient, conservative to say at the least, planet that he got beat up by Hulk, so he dedicated his life to serving him, but he was not a funny guy or a weak guy. He was actually a pretty strong character. And I would consider him, I guess, if like Piccolo, Dragon Ball Z kind of guy. But they made him funny, and he was talking about how his mom was helping him start a revolution. Anyone want to do a revolution? My mom's made the flyers for me. My mom's going to be there. And you're all laughing because it's basically a giant rock mama's boy. Lo and behold, you come into the third or fourth installment of Thor, and suddenly he no longer has a mother. He never had a mother. He had two fathers, and we had to go through two rock guys getting together, and one had a mustache. And it was like the stereotypical stuff they were presenting of what a gay person was, I thought was insulting. It would be like, oh, his parents were black, and they had to put blackface on him. So this one, I guess all gay men are weird and have to have little mustaches. And I was just sitting there watching this going, they think we're stupid? Like, people invest in these movies, and, you just don't switch all of a sudden that Leia's actually Han Solo's sister. You know what I'm saying? You don't just switch. And they did that because they just didn't care. And it was such a glaring thing that people just walked out of, and it was the only movie that I've ever walked out of. And I was like, there was something I never wanted to do, but I was just like, what are we doing? And we're seeing the results of woke mixing in with and it seems to always goes after our kids stuff or our younger adult stuff. You notice they're not redoing Gone with the Wind woke style. You know what I'm saying? They're just coming after.
They'll get there.
Well, I don't think so. I think
no.
I think the jury's out. I think Marvel's doing a reboot. Star Wars is doing a reboot. Like, everyone's getting it, is trying to fix it because they lost, and this is what DC experienced when they let you go, is they lost a lot of money. And money seems to be the only thing that makes these corporations say no to woke. And I think we're going to see a change.
Right. I saw an article yesterday saying Pixar, the formerly great animation studio, they were laying off like 14% of their staff or something like that. So you're right, because they've been doing too much woke stuff. I think it is the classic concept of what the Marxists and the communists do. McCarthy was right that the communists did invade Hollywood in the 50s. Remember, they make fun of him, but he was right. And they invaded all of our institutions for like the last 100 years, including the church, education, government, I would say. And it's if you read the communist literature, they talk about their concept of the long march through the institutions. This is a decades-long plan to get into positions of power.
Right, because the easiest is to convince a crowd is to show them a movie.
There's research, I believe, going back to the 50s, showing that storytelling, narrative, is the strongest form of persuasion. And that's what's so sinister about this stuff they're doing. If I'm a great writer, actor, artist, dancer, singer, anything I tell you penetrates to the subconscious and your brain thinks it's true. It's why you jump in a movie when there's a monster. You know in your awake mind, this isn't real, but your subconscious is absorbing it because I'm such a good actor or writer or illustrator, whatever I am. And these people in Hollywood, they are fantastic actors, writers, singers, dancers, great comic book artists and writers. So when they create these pieces of art, which are nothing more than patterns, your brain will go, oh, that is true. My father is an idiot. My country does suck.
Yeah.
Because that's the message and that's not an accident that they're putting it in there. Believe me, it's not an accident at all.
Well, that's when you don't have the numbers. That's how you create numbers, is by showing your ability in a movie or TV series. So, okay, so then you come along. Things are, you bet on yourself, which I think is probably the ingredients to every great American story of whether it's redemption or it's opening a new door and building something. It's that moment when you bet on yourself. And you talked about when you were writing your resignation letter, that's when you kind of like, I'm going to do it. What do you think the scariest part? So you've left, you've walked away, there's all this attack on social media and stuff. What was the scariest time during that period? Was because you, like you said, you didn't have a place to jump off to. So here you are, you just walked out of DC. I'm sure, was your family concerned? Friends, were people going, what were you doing? Have you lost your mind? Was it a tough period before you start? I mean, you turned it around pretty fast, but during that time, I can remember just for myself when I jumped away from wanting to do what the WWE wanted to do, and I knew that was going to result in me getting canned. But I bet on myself. But there's those moments where you bet on yourself where you're thinking, maybe I overstepped here. Was there ever a point where you're like, maybe I should have just done the damn magazine and just moved, or a comic book and moved on?
I'd be lying if I'd say that those thoughts, the exact ones you had, didn't come to me. It wasn't scary when I was leaving because to me it was unacceptable what they were asking me to do. Right. It's like they might as well have asked me to help them rob the bank. I'm like, the answer, you could ask me that every day. The answer is going to be no every day. I'm not doing underage sex stuff with kid characters, and I'm not doing un-American books. So the answer will be no the rest of my life. The part that was the hardest in the moment was the sadness. This is my childhood dream. It's my identity. My favorite artist hired me. I'm at, I listened to your amazing autobiographical books, and you talk about Dusty Rhodes, being one of your mentors and how amazing that was for you and how you loved him when you were younger and stuff. My favorite artist, Jim Lee, is the man who literally hired me. And I think it wasn't scary when I was quitting. It was heartbreaking. It was so sad. Running my own business where I write the comic books, I draw them, I print, I color, I do all the stuff. Then I pack and ship them out of my house. There are moments when the work gets so hectic and so hard. I'm dealing with printers and this and that. It's mostly good, but when it's hard, it's been like, if I just stayed at Warner Brothers, they take care of all of the business end. And
right.
I just get to do creative, And I think if I was a dishonest man, I'm half Mexican, I'm half Libyan. Warner Brothers is woke. If I just said the words, if I just said America sucks, Donald Trump sucks, if I just said what they wanted me to say, I could be like a VP there. They let me write a story just based on my identity there. You know that? They had a call for minorities to write comics because I wasn't a writer for them. I write for myself now. I was just an illustrator and a colorist for them. But they opened up something. They wanted you to write something woke against white people, but I tricked them, and I wrote a story against identity politics. I wrote about being an Arab in the 90s during the Gulf War, but the moral of that story is my grandpa tells me it doesn't matter what our race is, it matters what we do. And they actually loved it. And I tricked them by using my race to get into the little bigoted race writing program. So were there moments I was sad? There still are. I miss Superman and Batman. It was such an honor. I was humbled to work there. But had to move on.
Well, you paired up with the one and only Dean Cain, America's Superman, and you guys have had a new comic book that's out, and it's doing really well.
Right.
And I know one of my favorite TV personalities rocked a couple of your shirts, and I believe they're sold out now or something. I don't know. I mean, I forget who the kid is. His name always escapes me. It's like the Tyrone, something like.
Tony?
Anyway, yeah,
something with a T.
Really attractive dude. He works with like a small person and a skinny woman. Yeah. Well, anyways, but the response from fans were like, "Oh, we got to get that. We got to get that." And they're, and Dean Cain is an American treasure. And he's one of my favorite people whenever he does. He hasn't left California in a while because I'm assuming he's busy doing all the promotion tour with your comic book. So can you tell us a little bit about how you and Dean Cain came to be? Because that's a pretty interesting pairing.
I became friends with Dean the same way I became friends with you, through Twitter. He messaged me when I was getting all the heat and I was getting bashed and praised. It was weird. I was global viral news when I did the thing against DC Comics. It was Fox News did stories on me, Breitbart, European news agencies contacted me. Dana Lash, I thought it was Dana Loesch all this time, but I talked to her husband. It's Dana Lash. She wanted to interview me, but I said no. Now I've done 1 million interviews, but I'd never done a TV interview before. But it was global news for about 3 days. And then Dean saw it on Twitter, I guess, and he reached out to me. So he gave me his number, and I called him, and I said, "What can I do for you, Mr. Cain?" And he said, "What can I do for you?" Because I want to promote everything you're doing. I love when people stand up for this stuff and stand on principle. and we became fast friends. We're both big football guys. We're both, he's older than me, but we're very similar in our sensibilities. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's a dedicated father. My identity is father. I'm a grandfather now too. But, I had dinner with him 2 days ago and spent like 3 hours at his house. And we're actually friends now. We're business partners. But he promoted me on Truth, Justice, American Way, the first independent comic I did. And when I was finishing illustrating that, I had a few pages left to draw. I was like, what am I going to do next? And I said, you know what? Dean, he loves all this stuff. He helped promote me. What if I did a book that was like, we go back to the 90s or the 80s and Dean made an action movie? And I called him on the phone. I said, Dean, you love all this stuff. If you could go back and do another movie, what would it be like? And he kind of told me his ideas. And I said, oh, I love that stuff. And he told me, have you ever seen Romancing the Stone, Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner? I said, that's a favorite of mine. So we did Dean Cain, All-American Lawman, where he's sort of your James Bond, Jack T. Colton from Romancing the Stone, your Indiana Jones kind of flavor with a beautiful woman taking on some real bad guys south of the border. And it's a hoot. It's absolute fun. The book is out. You can get it at bigmancomics.com right now. People love it. Go search for reviews online. They say it's so entertaining. And we set out to make an action movie. And people who read it say, oh my gosh, it's so fast-paced. I feel like I just watched an 80s action movie. I sent you a bunch of copies. I hope you get a chance to read them.
Yeah, I got it. I'm fighting up my 18-year-old.
You can read them in between one of your 17 jobs that you have. So I know you read them eventually.
Well, when you have 6 kids and 3 12-year-olds, you don't get days off. But
3 12-year-olds.
Yep. Well, not really, but same. They're all from me, anyways. But I was just curious to what I look like in other races, and I'm cute in all of them. So,
hey,
yeah, I'm well represented. But I grew up I loving comic books, and I was a big Hulk guy, and I liked Venom when he was with Brock, when he was a meathead, and I got caught up in that, and then the Hulk stuff branched off, and DC, I always thought the Dark Knight was just far above everything else, and it was just and the movies to match. I think that's probably the best comic movie combination as far as success, and but I was looking for new stuff to try to bond with my kids over, and I can't find anything because it's all very woke. The everybody wants to pick a lane, or their new superhero is politically motivated or is pushing some kind of issue. And I always thought the best superheroes were the ones that were straight-laced, and their virtue was, like with Superman, was their greatest power. To think about doing something like that again, I was looking everywhere, and I really couldn't find anything. And then you and I started talking, and I had an old idea of a comic book a few years ago with horseshoe crabs, so I'm not going to say anything else, spoiler alert. But because I'm a science geek, and we started talking about coming up with ideas and stuff, and it was amazing how just like a couple sentences with you, and then it's like a virtual storyboard just pops up. And it's very cool not just that, but for men these days to be able to go back and be like, what if we could do this? And what if we could do that? And here's a situation where, like, I'm always bitching and complaining about a comic book or a movie I didn't like, and now here's a situation where we can actually put one together and do it exactly the way we think men like, or alpha males or teenagers. Because, like, shouldn't your book be for everyone? No. Barbie's not for everyone. Like, you know what I'm saying? Right. G.I. Joe's not for everyone. And that's the thing that bothers me. That's my biggest bone to pick with all this woke shit, is that we're all supposed to, one, know their nicknames, even though they have no friends. And two, we're supposed to just let everyone else's stuff be before ours. It's like, you go to a movie not to be represented. You go to Escape and watch a movie. And if the movie doesn't have any light-skinned Scottish men in it, I'm not storming out. I'm not like, there's no black Scottish guys in these movies. This is bullshit. I'm not watching it.
Tyrus, how would I ever find a Mexican, Libyan, Turkish, Syrian, Jew, Basque person like myself?
Well, I would say we would fight to get you represented in Braveheart. They need to be represented on the battlefield. It's just
right. My favorite character growing up was Han Solo.
Okay.
Last time I checked, Harrison Ford. That sounds pretty damn British to me, that name.
Yeah.
And I completely identified with him because he's got swag. He's brave. He flies around space with his giant dog as his best friend. I had a pair of pants in first grade, and they had a stripe down the seam of the leg, just like Han Solo's. His is red, but mine was yellow, but they were black pants with a yellow stripe. And I thought I was Han Solo, like in first grade in kindergarten.
You know what?
I don't need to see my race up there. If I do, great, whatever.
How many white kids shot a basketball with their tongue out after Michael Jordan came around? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Nobody, greatness, virtuous, integrity, color has nothing to do with it. That's the stuff from the people who are pissed off because it's not them. You see stuff with Caitlin Clark. There might be a comic book for you then about, and what are they pissed off about her? Because the whole world stopped to watch an amazing basketball player with an unbelievable shot and range. But the downside is that she's white and they assume she's straight. So, I mean, it's just, and that's just the bitterness. That's not the public. That's not the people. Right. We clearly saw that with what happened with the new improved Superman, as they put it, and you trying American values, and your book is still available for purchase. So, I mean, that's a big, because it's funny, like I said, how you stop woke is when woke goes broke. And I don't think you're going to go broke. But the Dean Cain is excited. It's out now. I'm assuming there'll probably be sequels to this, and it's the series.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dean Cain, Volume 1, Dangerous Freedom. That is out now. You can get that at bigmancomics.com. Dean Cain, Volume 2, The Hong Kong Connection. I just came up with the plot driving home from Colorado yesterday. I was visiting my dad. He had knee surgery. And I stopped off in Vegas to spend time with Dean. That's where Dean Cain lives. And then I was driving home yesterday, and the plot came to me, and it's awesome. If you like heist capers, Hong Kong criminal underworlds, that's Dean Cain Volume 2. I've got a lot of books coming from Big Man Comics because it's one thing to get mad at them, ruining all of our fun stuff, right? Ruining all these characters. But complaining is not enough for me. I need to, what am I going to do about it? Right. So I did something. I stood on principle, quit my childhood dream job. Now I'm making my own. I have Empyrean. That's a science fiction. It's classic Star Wars meets Interstellar. I have something you and I are going to do together that you were talking about earlier. I have another one that's just like Goonies and Stranger Things called Jericho Green and the Hammerheads. I've got a lot of things in the hopper, and they're all being produced right now. Some are being already illustrated or pre-production art. And it's just such a blessing to get away. And now I am that 3-year-old again in the back of my grandparents' restaurant, just being fully creative. No middle management at Warner Brothers. And you work, in entertainment. You've been around it. You know how editors and managers can be. They don't sometimes have the talent that the talent has, and they're kind of giving you suggestions, and their suggestions are not good. That was a little bit of a problem at Warner Brothers, too, is your comic book editor didn't know how to draw, didn't know how to write.
And had absolutely no connection to the average person, and then it shows up in the movie. I don't understand why they can't get Dr. Doom right. But, it's just because the people who are talking about it don't know nothing about it, and then every once in a while somebody comes along with Thanos, and you're like, one tier, they get it. And then you get the Rockman, or they make Superman break his one rule. So, I mean, it's just, and that's from people who know nothing about the grassroots, because that's how comic books work, because these stories are passed down. These comic books are passed down. Like, father gives it to his son or gives it to his daughters, and they give it, and they take care of it. And you can't fold the seam, and hey, don't leave it open. Don't drink a soda next to it. Like, comic books are a part of American fabric. And for a long time, kids were getting messages on there, and the messages was like the Boy Scouts. You got to see a cool guy like Batman, but the message was always the same. It was always do right, treat each other right, be a good citizen, don't break the law. Be good to your mother and get your education. So, and somehow that's offensive now. Now there's no.
Comic books are.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. Comic books are.
Oh, I was going to say what you were saying there. Another thing that's so beautiful about comics being passed down, as you were saying, I don't know if you know this. They are an original American art form. Comic books don't come from somewhere else. We made them here first. Some people claim about the 20s, the teens were the very first comic books. They would take the newspaper strips and then band them together, and then reprint those things as banded up editions. That's why they're called comics, because at first it was just a collection of the funny strips. Right. Then they started getting into superhero stuff and all that adventure a little bit later. So as a proud American citizen who loves this country, I don't ever want to be a part of taking it apart. And people wonder, well, why do woke people do this? Why does the brand new Doctor Who that debuted like 2-3 weeks ago, Why does it have the lowest ratings in 60 years of that show? Now they made it a gay black musical. Why do they alter Superman and Batman? My friend Shem Fangetti put it to me this way. Communism is a culture of resentment. Hey, Tyrus, you're wealthy. You're famous. Why do you have all that? It should be mine. So I'm going to take it from you. And if I can't take it from you, I'm going to destroy it.
Right.
Anything that's beautiful, anything that you should enjoy, I resent. I want it, but they don't want to work for it. You notice they don't create a new character that's the way they want woke usually. They'll take an existing one that already has success, piggyback that success, and then change it to their identity.
And ride that character to the ground because they end up destroying the character or in some cases, destroying the entire franchise.
Look at Star Wars now. Look at Star Wars.
Yep.
They spent over $1 billion to build the Star Wars hotel in Florida, closed it like a year and a half. Because it was all the new, woke, boring characters that nobody likes.
Yeah, no one was feeling Jar Jar Binks. But they had some but they did, you know what, though? And this is where it drove me crazy. You come up with this, and maybe they just didn't know what they had. They come up with this Darth Maul character. And I was like, and he's the baddest thing you've ever seen with a lightsaber. And
he looks amazing.
And he looks amazing. He looks like he dreams evil. Like, everything about him is evil. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's got an evil lair. It's like sits on a chair with thorns in it. He's just a bad dude, right? And all they had to do was have him run the gauntlet. That's all they had to do. We didn't need Count Dooku. Nobody needed a Frenchman lightsaber. I was just like, what are we doing? France was a big producer of lightsabers all of a sudden for swordsmen from the 1600s. So they insult our intelligence, and then because if Darth Maul runs the thing, and Anakin turns dark to beat Darth, we got another ball game. But there's no originality. No, we have to do the exact same movie. We're just going to switch it out. And Luke Skywalker was replaced with a woman with the exact same storyline, the same planet base. Yeah. Like, there's just no respect. They just piggyback off an old story, but the characters have nothing to them because all the characters are fluid. So, I mean, it's like there's nothing to them. There's nothing to connect to. Because everyone who wanted to be Darth Vader for Christmas or Halloween or whatever the hell your deal with, or just an average Wednesday, no one ever said, hey, is he black? Is he white? I'm confused. Never came up because it was the character. They wanted to be able to do this to people. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, the race and the stuff that's pushed in this country is coming from a very small group, and you put it together beautifully. With the Marxists and the communist behavior and the I want your stuff and I want to earn it. But they're also the ones who are trying to tear down the fabric because basically when I think of America, and correct me, or actually when I think of America, it's all about betting on yourself. It's all about changing family wealth within a lifetime. I honestly, I say this all the time, and I think it takes about 5 years in this country of hard work, dedication, not accepting no to change your life forever. I think it takes 5 years.
And you can still do it.
Yeah, you can. You're literally.
Tough, but you can still do it.
You're one day, even if you walked in, like if I walked out of here and this interview sucks, you are fired. Get the hell out of Fox. Don't ever speak to us again. And I can't get a job anywhere. And then lo and behold, one day I get a job at McDonald's. Inside of 6 months, I'm going to be a manager there. Inside of 2 years, I'm going to have my own franchise. Because even though I might not be in front of the camera, my work ethic is not going anywhere. And I will find a way because I'm not afraid of hard work. And I know I live in the one place to where you can change your destiny with hard work. And that message in a comic book matters to me, in my opinion. And that's kind of the way you're going. Most of the stuff you have has a message in it, correct? You start your stories with the message,
no matter what you.
Right. Whether you
story,
go ahead.
Whenever you write a story, there's always a message. You need to pick what it is. You cannot not have a message. Whatever the characters do and experience is the message. The message of Dean Cain, All-American Lawman, is actually stated twice. It's to be a man and serve God. You do the right thing no matter how hard it is, no matter how terrifying it is. And he has to make some really tough choices in the book. Really bad things where he has to face down evil and stare right in the face. He's going up against horrible, deadly gangsters, just the worst murderous, powerful people. And he has to stand up to them when he has a chance to just chicken out and slip away. He does have a chance to leave. So to me, yeah, it's all about message, but you never want to preach. You don't want to be like the social justice warriors, the left-wing people ruining movies and TV. You will never read my books and realize I'm giving you a message. you'll just be entertained as hell.
Right.
Be inspired. I never go, I don't like Democrats, and you better go to church and eat your vitamins. I don't do that to you.
Well, that's a villain anyway.
First goal is it wouldn't be fun. It would be awful to do it that way.
Yeah.
It's just entertaining. And the art and the story, that's the sugar to help the medicine go down. You'll never know. None of you, Tyrus, you'll never know that I was actually giving you a message. You'll feel it, I guess, subconsciously.
Well, that's the point of being an artist.
Right. That's the skill, to have the nuance there where they won't feel preached at. Like, I hate Democrats. I would never. That's so stupid to put that in a book. Or the villain is a big dumb commie, and like I don't do things like that.
Right.
I keep my very personal stuff like that. I make it very subtle. Make it very. I'm kind of good at this. I've been doing this for almost 25, 30 years. I'm pretty good at doing this.
So let me ask you a question. If you got a phone call tomorrow from DC saying, "Hey, we fucked up. We want.
Okay.
Will you come back?"
Well, it would.
It would take would it be a simple yes or no, or would it be how
I
so?
would go back on one condition, and it isn't money. Because if I wanted money, I could have just stayed there with my identity,
exactly.
My skin tone, Mexican, Arab. If I just said what they wanted, I'd be the boss over there. So it isn't about that. I would go back on one condition. If I had 100% the greatest lawyers in the world sign these contracts that said they could not alter what I'm doing, that I could make good, uplifting stuff, I would do that. But I'm never walking away from my own company. I want to be my own boss and make my own stories.
It is better.
I could make Batman and Superman stuff my way and write it in my style, where it has uplifting messages again. Why wouldn't I do it? I can handle that much work. I would do a little bit for them, but I mostly want to focus on mine. This is forever. This is my company. I'm doing this the rest of my life. I love Big Man Comics. And I think as a big man yourself, you got to love the name of my company, right? I was trying to come up with a name. And I'm, like I said earlier, I'm 6'4", so, and you know what it's like being big. It is unusual. People ask you to grab things. You don't fit on airplane seats until you get wealthy, and then you get first class. I ride Space Mountain with my legs all crooked at Disneyland. And, it's just different being a big man.
Yeah, I don't do the amusement parks anymore, but the last time I went, I almost lost my legs in the Small World after all. Just trying to make my daughters happy. So you
can't ride a roller coaster, right?
My knees, the knees don't fit. It's just not worth it. But before we go, so I'm curious now because you made this two final questions. One just for fun, and I'll ask that one last because that's one. So when you talked about and you mentioned that your father is Muslim and you're a Christian, and was your mother Muslim or Christian?
My mother's Christian. So my mother, their family is from America from the 1700s. My dad got here in the 1970s, escaping Gaddafi's socialist regime. So he came from Libya, my father,
So a Christian, Muslim get together, they have this child, and you grow up, and I'm assuming just your father's faith had to be introduced in some form or another, just off his practices or his morality and stuff. Was there a we'll let him decide? Was it a competition, or was it more of just kind of a family and just kind of a because both religions are different but similar in terms of how you're supposed to treat people. So like
the morality is very similar. Obviously the core beliefs are different. There. It's not as interesting as you would hope the answer. My parents divorced when I was 8.
Okay.
And I was raised by my mother.
Mom, so
we're going to Christian
she wins.
Church.
Yeah. Okay.
We're going to Christian church 3 times a week. But I'm at my dad's house most of the last week because he had double knee replacement. And he's walking around. I'm telling him, sit down, I'll do it. And he's a tough guy. He's 74, but he's one of those guys who just naturally made a muscle. He wants to do it all himself. But he prays 5 times a day. He has his rug. He doesn't kneel now because he got the new knees and he has to let him heal. But he's praying 5 times a day. He won't eat bacon or anything like that. He's a devout Muslim. And, he's fair to me. He says he wishes I was, but, he didn't raise me and my brother. So we're Christians and all that. But we don't argue over it. It is what it is. And I understand, the way people are raised. How are you gonna change from that, right? So it's our faith, and I guess we'll all find out in the end.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I feel you on that one. Okay, and then finally, this is just fun. If there was one comic, whether it's been a movie or not been a movie, you could remake it into a movie. What would it be, and who would be your main character? Who would be your star?
Oh, well, it's never been a movie yet, but I'm saying it will be. It would be a crossover of Dean Cain, All-American Lawman, and then maybe Tyrus the Unstoppable joins him on an adventure.
I want to fight him.
Bad guys down.
I got beef with Cain. We were supposed to do a movie together for Hallmark faster. It was 2 detectives faster than the speed of love or something like that.
Really?
And he left me behind. So I got beef with Dean.
Okay, so in the Tyrus the Unstoppable movie with Dean Cain, you go after him. It's
yeah,
like the
because
thing with the two
like
heroes
he snubbed me in the academy. I was a young academy guy looking for help, and Dean just big time me back before he found his way. Yeah, like we have a picture of
your own ride, rookie.
Yeah, he was a complete, and I missed the meeting and I was let go. So see, there's my origin story.
There you go. So now you're running a crime ring out of Chicago that Dean has to take down.
Yeah, and of course he's Superman, so I guess he'll get it done.
Right, and then at the end you hug it out. At the end you hug it out
because he is Dean Cain, and everyone loves Dean Cain. So where can people find you? Obviously, you've got a YouTube show called
Yes, I do.
Dad's,
and you have a standing invitation to come on my YouTube channel with Jericho Green, my co-host on Double Impact, where we talk all 80s and 90s Van Damme, Steven Seagal, Rambo. We talk all about macho, fun action movies back when they were good. So please come on that. Please come on that someday.
And then Big Man Comics, where can they get, if they want to get a comic book, where do they go?
If you want to get the best piece of entertainment you're going to get a hold of, movie, book, anything, go to bigmancomics.com right now. There are a couple hundred copies of the first printing of Dean Cain, All-American Lawman left. When those are gone, they're gone for good. Of course, there's going to be second printings and all that.
Right.
Lots more books coming, but you're not going to find higher quality. I worked at the highest levels at DC and Marvel and all that. If you've heard of it, I've worked on it. Star Wars, Ghostbusters, Iron Man, Black Panther, Green Lantern, Superman. I've done it all. You've seen my work out there. Everybody watching, you've seen my work, so it's the best. And it's for adults, but kids can read it, and there's no sex, there's no cussing, there's no gore. But it's not little kiddie. You'll be bored. You could be my age, be Tyrus's age, read it, and fully engaged. You can hand it to your middle schooler, and you don't have to read over their shoulder and be worried that I put something weird and perverse in there. So bigmancomics.com. We got sci-fi, we got action adventure, we got like a kid's Goonie comedy. We got something cooking with Tyrus that might be really awesome. Superhero stuff. Lots more coming. And I only work with really disciplined veteran artists because I hire artists too. I cannot draw all of this. There's not enough time in the day. So I'm working with guys that worked at Disney and Marvel and DC and all of it. And they're on the same page as me ethically and morally. Want to make great. Goal 1, entertain. Goal 2, inspire. You know what I mean? So entertain, inspire, and quality. That's what Big Man Comics does. We deliver. It's great stuff. Get yours today.
All right. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for your time, boss.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll be talking to you soon.
All right, man.